Hey everyone, thank you for coming in and joining us for the second episode. I'm really sorry there's been a couple of days delay to bring this one out, just a few editing issues. Had an amazing time chatting with Darrin from Nothing Valentine, and I can almost guarantee there's going to be a second part to this one. So hopefully you guys will enjoy. And here we are.
What's up?
We're here with Darrin from Nothing Valentine, or if I'm not mistaken, who is Nothing Valentine.
Yeah. Nothing Valentine's kind of like my stage name that I've been using for a long time.
Oh, okay. Would you prefer?
Whatever's more comfortable for you. Most people call me Darrin, so I'm fine with that.
Cool. So how you holding up?
Hanging in there. We were out of work for a good 2 months, but about a month ago we went back, so I've been staying busy, trying to anyways.
So what is it when you say work? Are you talking music or?
Music, graphic designing still. I'm also a live audio engineer for concerts and stuff. That's not really starting to pick back up just yet, but I've been doing maintenance on the club that I work at and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, cool. It's been a weird time.
It's been crazy. It's like you wake up every day and it's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Is there anything new on Netflix today?
Right.
Just to get away from the media, everything that's going on, because I think I know so far this year we've managed to only play one show.
Yeah.
And
how'd that show go?
That was a great show.
Nice.
We had loads of fun, although I made that awful coronavirus joke right at the start of the show, and myself right now.
That happens, man. You can't win them all.
Of course, man. So what are you doing to keep what were you doing to keep busy before you went back to work?
A lot actually. I always have a bunch of projects going on in various stages of completion. I'm a graphic designer and web designer, so I've been building the new Nothing Valentine website, which will have my merch store, tour dates when that happens, and any other kind of information you could want to find on my music projects. And I've also been working on a website that you can buy loops, samples, synth patches, that kind of thing. I've been working on that with Adrian from Swansect and Carry On.
Oh, I know Adrian. Adrian sent me a few of the demo packs.
Yeah. He's a good guy, man.
He's great. He's unbelievably generous. When you guys started working on those things, he started sending me, "Oh, check this out. This might sound great on your stuff, and try this."
Yeah.
And I'm wow. Okay, I've got a wealth of stuff here that's all gonna sit on the next VK record.
Nice. Yeah.
So is that looking to launch anytime soon, or is it
the
still
website's the website's actually launched. It's blackbataudio.com. And right now it only has 2 products. It has a kick drum pack that is multi-sampled and round robin with multiple velocity layers, so you can get a real sounding kick out of programmed drums. And then the second pack is from Adrian, and it's a bunch of mishmash of loops made from his modular synthesizers, and there's samples and a lot of textures and ambient sounds, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, sick. I'm gonna have to check that out as soon as we're done here now.
Oh, it's awesome. I've been playing around with it in my spare time, and I love the stuff he comes up with. I think he said he's working on a new pack that'll be out soon, so.
Sweet. It's that sort of modular stuff. I'd love to get into the modular side of things. It's just crazy expensive and
it's
way
so
above
expensive.
my intelligence level.
Yeah, I'm already bad with effects pedals and outboard synthesizers. I can't imagine getting into just building an entire modular rack and
I know, right?
patching it all together. And But it's cool. I love the sounds that you can make with that kind of thing. So it's really nice that Adrian, who has, a pretty good setup, is making packs for people that it's kind of out of their price point to get into.
Yeah, it's great, and it's with that stuff. The thing that scares me the most is that you sort of playing around with patches, just throwing noise and CV everywhere, and then you've got the sound. You've got that moment to record that sound, and
Yeah, and
then
then it's gone.
it's gone. It's just, and I'm one of these. I mostly stick to software, uh, but I've had a chance to play around with a few really nice outboard synths, and I'm just thinking, what if I ever want to go back to this? What if I think, oh my God, that sound that I had on that demo would go great here, and now it's gone.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of like why I got into making sample packs and playable synth patches, because I would make these like sounds that, I'd run two or three different keyboards through a bunch of different guitar pedals, and I'm never going to remember what that is. So I'll sample out the patch and I'll, save it for later to when I'll be able to, play it back right whenever I want.
Yeah, that's great. So what's the because I've spent the last couple of days going back and checking out some of your earlier stuff because I was mostly aware of Nothing Valentine.
Right.
And of course, I went back and I immediately found Beside Silence,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
which is cool, really
Thank
cool.
you. Thank
Uh,
you. That was my first, I don't want to say real band, because I've been playing in bands and like being in the music industry in some form or another since I was 15. And I was in a couple bands before Beside the Silence. We started that in 2013. Um, but that was my first band that like I actually like got on the road with and released a record under a record label and had proper distribution. So it was really cool and it was really exciting.
and what prompted the switch to? Because of course, Nothing Valentine has a much more sort of synth orientated sound than Beside the Silence. What switched you over from there?
Uh, Honestly, with Beside the Silence, it was still kind of like a solo project. I was still writing the majority of the material with the help of our drummer as well. Um, and I was kind of like running all the things behind the scenes, the design aspect of it, like with merchandise and our stage wear and things like that. It was still kind of all on my shoulders. And it was really hard trying to find people that like could play the material and also had their shit together as far as like being able to tour and uh, taking the time for rehearsals and things like that. So I wanted to kind of move into a less guitar oriented kind of sound. Like there's the guitar's still there and it's still heavy, but it's something that I can personally play like as I sing, because the Beside the Silence stuff, there's no way I can like play that stuff and like do the vocals all at the same time.
Yeah.
Uh, so I wanted something a little bit more laid back on the guitar and with a lot more stuff to build up around that, like atmospheric stuff, lead synths, textures, that kind of thing.
So it's sort of a venture into being a little more independent. Uh,
Yeah, relying and you're in a band, you know how it is. Relying on people is like so hard, when you're in a lower level band. Um, so I really wanted to kind of move into as bare bones as possible, like project that I can pick up and do whatever. I got a drummer, a bass player, and a backing track with all of our synths. And like if that's all I had, I could still play a show. Because there was a couple tours we did with Beside the Silence where like we didn't even have a bass player, and because we couldn't get anyone who was available. So that was a big reason why I kind of moved into this sound. And honestly, like it's kind of the music I grew up on. I grew up with bands like Static X and Slipknot were first, coming in, and that new metal sound mixed with the industrial stuff that I was already listening to, like fucking Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and Manson and that kind of thing. It was nice to kind of go back to a music that like I grew up loving.
It's really weird for me hearing someone else saying this, because this is the entire thing that Vanity Kills is all about.
Yeah.
Like VK started originally as a sort of, I'd always been a hired gun, so it was sort of my way of saying this is what I would like to have done.
Right.
And I never really had a band. Like the guys you see in the music videos, with the exception of the drummer we had back then, never played on any of the records. It was all just sort of out of my brain.
Right.
And it was only last year where I was sort of coerced into turning it into a live band, which we do it very much the same way as you. We've got everything on a backing track, and if our bass player can't make the show, we can just turn on the bass track. If the guitar player can't make it, then I'll pick up the guitar.
Yeah, you being in an up and coming band, you have to be very you have to be fluid, with how you perform, because availability is changing nonstop. Someone might be able to make this 2-week tour, but then they're not able to do anything for the next 3 months or whatever. So you have to be able to adapt really well these days.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun having it that way, because that way you have the opportunity to make every show a little bit different and play around with it. You take the little cherries that you can get from
and
situations like.
It's really refreshing too, like playing with a lot of different musicians and seeing their takes on your material is always cool. It's been a long time since I've been in a band of 4 or 5 guys for an extended period of time. And I just imagine at this point, for me being the primary songwriter, I think it would kind of get stale. Like, I kind of like the idea of, different people coming in and out of the mix. And I think it's kind of nice for the audience too, because everyone likes having their favorites in bands, and when, a guitar player that hasn't been in the band for a while comes back for a tour, maybe they'll be a little bit more excited and a little bit more apt to come to that show because they want to see him and that kind of thing.
It just sort of it adds to that vibe then as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
All excitement surrounding things like that, it's always great. So we were talking the other day, and you sent me the press release for the new single you've got coming out.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what inspired this new song?
The world seeming like it's ending inspired this song. No, it's the day that George Floyd died. I think it struck something in a lot of people in this country, and it seems like all over the world. I get bits and pieces, of news articles of things that are going on in different countries, and honestly, I'd like to talk about like what you think about it, being an outsider, like looking in. But yeah, that really struck a chord with me, and it kind of put a lot of things that I was doing like on halt, and I was reading as much information as I could, getting as educated as I could about things, and just to understand it completely. And I went to the Cleveland protest, and it got ugly really quick. And, it got ugly from the police just using force almost immediately after they assembled. And I was assisting some people in the medic tent that were like bringing people in and like cleaning them up. And it was really horrible seeing like all that happening. It was very surreal. And, there was flashbangs going off every, few seconds. There was tear gas getting shot at us, and it was it really like opened my eyes to a lot of things. And when I was starting Nothing Valentine, I wanted it to be a little bit more lighthearted. That's why I made Goth Girl my first single. And because Beside the Silence was very much like a social, like political statement kind of band, and I was kind of trying to like get away from that a little bit. But when something like this happens, it's kind of hard to ignore it and not say something about it.
It's
So
such a cataclysmic turn in the way things are done. It's weird watching it through a lens from over here.
yeah,
Because when I was growing up, I've always been a bit of an Americanophile, if you will. Like from a very young age, my dream was to head out to the US and the American dream, so to speak.
yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah, and it was always weird to me because growing up here in the UK, I was probably 10 or 11 before I saw a person of color. Because I grew up in a small town in Wales, and they just weren't. But in my head, it was always like, they're out there, and we'd see them all the time because we get so much American media sort of pumped over here. And the way I always viewed people of color was they were the coolest people ever. Every time you ever saw them in anything, they were always the cool ones. You know what I mean? There were very few Urkels.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were loads of Keenan and Kels and Ice Cube and those sorts of people.
Yeah, when I was a small child, like young, I got into music really young because I had an older brother. So like, he was giving me his records and like I was listening to him. And, when Eminem, was hot on the fucking block with the Eminem, not the Eminem show, Slim Shady LP. And Dre and Snoop Dogg and like that whole like LA scene was just, it was such a, I don't want to say a culture shock because I grew up in Cleveland. I've been around a mixture of ethnicities my whole life, so it's nothing new to me. But I just thought it was so fucking cool, like, to be honest. And it was so eye capturing and like it just captured your imagination, and it really kind of got my jump start with like being into music.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my favorite artist and to this day still is Michael Jackson.
Mine is Prince.
I see. I had both Prince and Michael, but Michael just took the slight lead until I got older and realized just how talented Prince was.
Yes.
But sort of growing up with that sort of mindset of like, oh, these guys, they're all black and they're cool and they're talented and they're the best ever. The last few years of my life, I've sort of realized that, been fed a lie. Because in my head, racism was gone.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what they try and get you to believe.
Yeah.
And like, it's so not like being a white person, living in a city that has, a lot of different minorities, living amongst, whites. It's the racist white people just assume they can just be racist with you because you're white, and you just see it all the fucking time. Anytime you're like sitting at a bar and like some dude thinks he can fucking like say a fucking awful joke or some shit like that. And I knew it wasn't gone, I knew it was everywhere. And as social media became like more of a thing, you started seeing it every fucking day, and like you started realizing how much this was happening.
It's insane because, like I say, for me it was almost as if it was gone, and then you get to a point where you start to see things like that and you go, wow, I've been fed this culture's art for so many years and tricked into believing that, they were equal to us in society's view, and that's just not been the case ever.
No. And it's honestly the same way over here. I mean, like they raise us from a young age with these like rose-colored glasses of what America was like and how it was founded, and
Yeah.
you don't even start like learning about like the real fucking shit until like you're almost an adult. And sometimes like in some, cities, they don't even teach, stuff about the civil rights movement and things like that. And it's just crazy to me that
It's
a big uh, portion of our population is treated like this, and they try and act like it's not happening.
yeah. I'm actually shaking talking about it because
Oh, dude, me too. Yeah, my
yeah,
heart's fucking racing because I'm very passionate about this.
I get so immediately angry about things, and you see it all over the world right now. Is that so many places, the UK has really taken the fight to our streets, and we've had protests literally everywhere. Some have gone peacefully and some not so much. But over
Yeah.
here, we don't have that immediate threat of a bullet.
Yeah.
That's not here. So, we don't, the citizens don't carry guns and the police don't carry guns except in extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
And they don't deem this to be in extreme circumstances. We're talking sort of, oh, that guy's got a gun. Right, we better get out there with the guns.
Right.
That's the only time they have them. So, it doesn't compare to what's going on over there in the States. But, it's been heartwarming to see this solidarity that's gone on between the two, but at the same time, it's like still this big.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we have people running our government that seem to be like fueling the fire, and on top of the media already fueling the fire, which you kind of have to expect, to be honest, at this point. But
Yeah,
you don't expect it coming from the leaders of your country that's supposed to be bringing everyone together. I lived through 9/11, and that was another very crazy time, in our country.
yeah,
But uh, I feel like everyone was trying to be one country at that point. And it seems like now with this happening, it's so divided. And, you have counter protesters coming and like being violent towards, people protesting peacefully. And so now not only have to worry about the militarized police state that's, trying to suppress what you're trying to say and march for. You have fucking crazies coming out of the fucking side with AR-15s and crossbows and just nuts. It's so crazy.
it's like we're sitting through the dystopian version.
I know, man. And
Of,
like right after the corona hit, like so everything was already like just a ghost town and people are already kind of like getting weird. And then this happened, man, and people just I think on all sides, people just unleashed their emotions.
yeah, it's one of those things. It got pent up for way too long, and with George Floyd and Christ, I'm such an awful person. I can't remember her name. Brianna.
Breonna Taylor.
That was it.
Yeah.
Those were the ones that sort of, right, that's it, enough.
Yeah. I mean,
And you've only got to hope that it will have some effect on not just people's mindsets, but the systemic thing that goes on in both our countries.
Yeah, I really hope this uh, gets a lot more people to start getting political. You know, there's a big portion of the country that they don't want to talk politics. They don't give a fuck about politics. Like, it might as well be uh, the football fucking league or something like that. It's so out of their mind they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I feel if more people were like involved in how our government works and tried uh, making more of an effort to like change things on a local level, you know, moving up federally, I think it would be a good start. You know, there's always going to be the corruption in government. I mean, I don't think that's going to ever go away because money's never going to go away. But if you actually give a shit and you actually like try and make things happen, like at least we have a fighting chance.
Yeah, and it's getting people to see that those little actions that everyone can take
Yeah.
sum up to something much, much bigger. You know, even if it's getting out and voting, I've seen so many people from both sides of the pond just being, I'm not going to vote. It doesn't make a difference, and you know, I'm not. I don't want to hear about it. It doesn't affect me. It does. It affects everyone.
Yeah, 100%.
Even even if you just have to read about it in the news, it's affecting you. You don't
Yeah.
want to hear those stories. Don't blank them out. Just do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like an empath. Like I feel hard. And like when I read these stories, it pains me to like think about these people and like what's being done to them. And that's why I wrote Civil Unrest, and it's a very emotional song. It's a very opinionated song, but I think it's things that I've been wanting to say, but have like kind of been holding back, and as I've been educating myself on things, because there's nothing worse than having an opinion that's like not based in facts or
Yeah,
reality. So I like making sure I know what I'm talking about before I say it.
absolutely. It's one of the biggest things. It's really sort of it's apparent that musicians and things have all started sort of taking a moment to use, not to use, that's the wrong choice of words, but to be inspired by these things and to say something.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I've got so many friends who said, "Dude, I've written a song. It's about this. Can you just look at the lyrics and check, make sure I haven't stepped over any lines?"
Yeah, yeah,
You
because
know,
that's important too. You know, uh, you don't want to. I don't want to offend anyone personally. You know, especially the people that I'm trying to speak out for. Uh, so it's definitely very important to choose your words wisely when you're talking about such delicate things like this.
yeah, of course. I mean, there's two songs now on the new Vanity Kills record that are directly influenced by everything that's going on right now. Um, one of them is the one that you feature on,
Yeah,
which is called Loaded Gun, and then there's one that I wrote literally 5 minutes after first reading about George Floyd,
yeah.
um, and it was just so immediately sort of there. It was like the working title, the Logic Pro project, was actually saved as the name George
Wow.
because it was just immediately it was like, here we go, this is gonna get worse.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Civil Unrest came about too. I had had the song, you know, the music written and recorded for a while, good few months, and I was just kind of, you know, having trouble figuring out what to say with it. And then that happened, and it just kind of came out.
It does. It's so immediate, and it's great that it does impact people to to speak out for what they believe is right. And I use that in, well, no, I'm going to be less, so word, less diplomatic about it, to speak out for what is right.
Yeah. Yeah, because it boggles my mind that anything that, we're trying to fight for is even a question, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how are there two sides to this issue? That
Is
this
this
big
person
of two
human? Do they
sides,
have,
like,
it's one of those weird things. Like, to me, it's like, is this person human? Yes, then they have every right that I have.
yeah, absolutely.
They have every respect that I expect. Everything. It doesn't click to me that there's an opposite to that.
Right. It's so crazy. And, I just like you, I was kind of hoping, things were going away, you know.
Yeah.
I had in my mind that these were old ideals, and soon the people with these horrible ideals won't be here anymore, and we can move on from it. But there's so many people that like think the way that they do, and like who still hold on to these archaic fucking views that should have never been thought of to begin with.
I saw an interesting post earlier today, which I'm going to paraphrase it. Somewhere along the lines of everyone calling out to bring Pantera back. We don't need Pantera right now.
No.
And it clicked to me. It was in that moment where I sort of went, hang on, you're right. They're from our side of everything. And there are even some bands out there that are pushing that opposite viewpoint that I never really clicked with before.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. System of a Down drummer being a big one. I've been
Yeah.
it. I don't know how you play in a band that long with that are preaching the things that they preach and just have like an opposing viewpoint, and still be. He seems very passionate about his political views, so I don't know why you'd want to be in a band like that, but
I think one of the weirdest things is that with System, they've always had a unification on the Armenian genocide thing. So a lot of their music is inspired by that
right.
and atrocities that happened there. So I think it's likely that all four agreed with each other up to a point and sort
Right.
of kept the subject matter within that region. But I think with everything going on in the world, you can see that Serge wants to talk about current events,
Right.
and that John may be having some issues with that because he doesn't necessarily see it the same way. And I think at that point, Serge just puts out the solo record.
I mean, yeah, that's what he's been doing for a while anyway, so.
Yeah, I got to a point where I couldn't distinguish between Serge on his own and System.
I mean, that's kind of where you want it to be,
Or at
right?
least, yeah, yeah. It's the next best thing to a new System record.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, that was where I was heading with this. It was when you hear about bands like Pantera or sort of artists like John Dolmayan, does that change your viewpoint on the music itself? Do you have that ability to separate the artist from the art?
Uh, I would say sometimes it's easier than others. Uh, with bands, when you see things coming from artists that are blatantly not okay, it makes it very easy to just be like, okay, I don't need that in my life anymore. And there's plenty of music I can latch onto and like enjoy knowing it's not supporting like a piece of shit person. Now those
Yeah,
are extreme cases, obviously, but no, it doesn't change the band at all. It's unfortunate, when someone that you look up to doesn't necessarily have the same ideals that you do. Um, but if they're not like uh, views that are hurting people, like they obviously have the right to think however they want to think, regardless of how dumb or stupid I might think that opinion is.
Yeah, I think the line is between the two actually, where you've got Systems Drummer is a Trump supporter, and Phil Anselmo is out there throwing out Nazi salutes and screaming. You know,
Right.
maybe there's the line is there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And hey, man, if you want to be a Trump supporter, I don't understand how, in anyone's right mind, at this point, you would still support him. But that's obviously your choice. But that's why I really think it's important, like, that everyone start taking like elections seriously, not just the presidential election, but local elections, and like getting these piece of shit fucking politicians like out, and like trying to get some people in that are at least, trying to fight for things that are going to benefit us, not like keep taking shit away from us.
It comes down to things as well, like outdated voting systems,
Yeah.
where you're talking electoral collegiates and things like that. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That was because you couldn't get everyone's vote to the same place to be counted 200 years ago.
Yeah. And
now it can be digitally transmitted in seconds. Why does it still exist?
And I personally, this is my viewpoints. I honestly believe that voter suppression is a very real thing, at least in the United States. Um, I think that people fighting against improving systems like that, and like making accessible for everyone who is allowed to vote to be able to vote, is not in, some politicians, course that they want to take, because
Yeah.
it doesn't benefit them. And I don't know if that'll ever change. I hope. But unfortunately, right now we're stuck with going to the ballot box and, making that, hour to go do it, or, sometimes longer. But it's important. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, the same thing happens here. We had so many numerous cases in our last general election for our prime minister that people were registered on lists and turned away when they arrived at the polling station.
Yeah, that happens all the time here. There'll be, times where a polling station just will be down, and like they won't be able to go vote, or they have to try and find another polling station, or they'll have so few machines that there's lines for 5 hours that you have to wait in to vote. And in this day and age, like, we're talking like instantaneously with impeccable audio. There's no reason why like we can't put minds together and like put a better system in place.
Oh no, absolutely. And you're talking about machines there. I mean, here it's a case of we get a piece of paper and a cardboard box with a slot in the top. That is literally it. My polling
like
station.
You're voting for prom queen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my polling station is literally just across the road from my house, and so I wandered over there on the last general election in my free time. Why not? And as I'm arriving, I'm just seeing people just getting turned away. No, you can't vote today. No, you can't vote today. I'm like, why not? And they let me in, and I was like, shit, what's different about me than it is to Mrs. Jones that lives on the end of my road?
Absolutely. Like, voting is one of your number one rights. Like, there's no reason that you should be trying to get anyone to stop voting. Like,
no. It's it's what is best for the country, because when you get voter suppression, all you end up doing is creating a majority of people who didn't get to have a say, and those are the ones that will cause you the problems later.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it's a situation where they know what they're doing. They know who they want to vote, who they don't want to vote.
Yeah.
And they'll do everything in their power to keep it that way.
Yeah. So
yeah, it sucks, man, because you grow up like having this view of what America is like, or what the UK is like for you, and as you like slowly start getting to the age of reason and start seeing things, you realize it's all a fucking lie. And
Yeah.
they're telling you a version of history that they want you to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that so much through my adult life. And I'm 32 now, and sort of getting to that point where I'm thinking, those things I wanted when I was a kid don't even exist.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's some people that hang on to those old school like ideologies so hard, because honestly, like, it's really emotionally crushing and hard to take, to
Yeah.
learn that like everything that you were taught as a child is just all a lie.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I
It's
didn't mean to get too deep.
Hey, no, this is good. This is great. Hey, you drink the same as me.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, the lifeblood.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I do so many things.
Same. I'm on the soft stuff right now.
Nice.
So, to divulge ever so slightly, what is next for Nothing Valentine? What's coming up in the near to far future, depending on how things go?
Um, well, I have an EP written. Uh, I'm still writing lyrics for some of the songs, and I'm trying to decide if I want to like wait for a while and release it all together as a collection, or if I want to just like release singles every month or so for the next year. And I kind of like the idea of just releasing one song, let people stew on it for a little while, and a month and a half, 2 months later, you release another one. And I think the idea of albums, as much as I love albums, like I'm a vinyl collector, like I have tons of tapes, and I like sitting down and experiencing an album front to back. But that's not really the world we live in anymore.
No.
Music has very much become kind of like a passive entertainment source. So I would personally rather be constantly releasing new material than releasing one piece of material like every 2 years for an album, and then uh, a month after the release it's kind of obsolete in the music industry's eyes. So it makes a little bit more sense, more so on a business level than on a creative level, because I do like writing big expansive pieces of music, um, but I think people enjoy getting more quicker than waiting such long periods of time for you to finish an album.
Yeah. It's a difficult one to choose. We debated over that with the new record, because we had I had 40 demos ready to go, and we narrowed it down to 11. So we just took the attitude of, these are songs all fit. We're going to put them out as one. But
Yeah,
to sort of circumvent what you were talking about, we will release a music video for every single song,
that's awesome.
which gives us the opportunity to promote each one throughout a usual sort of album cycle timeline.
Yeah, I like that. You definitely need some sort of video project, I think, for songs these days. Whether it be a lyric video or a music video, you need something visual. It's really hard for people, to put up a song and be like, hey, go listen to it, unless you have something like in their fucking face, like,
Yeah,
giving them something to look at.
you're finding more and more that you can look at iTunes and Spotify and Deezer, and you look at your streams on those and you kind of go, that's not good. And if you've got a music video for a song, you'll notice that that's got a hell of a lot more. And it seems that YouTube is actually the primary source for people to find music. Although it doesn't pay.
No. But does any of it really pay?
No. Unless people order physical copy CDs.
Yes, which people definitely should from the artists' websites.
Yeah, directly. Bandcamps, not from stores.
As cool as it is to have like albums like in Best Buy and like whatever stores, are around, we get next to nothing from it. So, making almost that.
Go on.
Oh yeah. Just making that one-time purchase like makes more of a difference than literally having like tens of thousands of plays on Spotify.
Yeah.
Which is so sad that that's like how it is, but that's kind of how it is. Like, I think a lot of bands who aren't getting millions of plays, billions of plays, they kind of look at, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Play or Apple Music, more of a way to get the music out there, and, hopefully you hook the people before the pandemic happened to coming to your show, which is causing its own new problems to the music industry, which will be curious to see how we circumvent that. But there's no way to make money from streams. So you kind of have to find other revenue streams, like, selling CDs, t-shirts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself fortunate in that I made the decision about 10 years ago to never make my own music my living.
Yeah.
I never wanted it to be my job that I relied upon because it would suck all the fun out of it. So I found other ways to make music or be involved in music that could earn me a living while I pump out my passion projects. So, for example, I do composition for video game and independent studios, things like that. So that sort of funds me to keep doing what I want to do. And of course, with yourself, with graphic design and engineering.
Yeah.
It's
funny. You like pick up these skills along the way, being a musician, because I never went to school for design or audio, but you learn these things and you use it to kind of, help your personal career out with your music. Now I'll have good recordings and like I'll have awesome t-shirts and like album covers. And then it slowly kind of becomes like more of a priority than the music sometimes, because that's what's making you money.
Who did your album art? And you're like, oh, I did that myself. Oh, could you do album art for me? $10.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you get started with. That's how I got started, anyways, in music.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have ever.
One thing led to another, and dots got connected, and I ended up, making t-shirt designs for people and logos and running audio for concerts and things like that.
We're gonna have to talk about that off the podcast because I want to talk business.
Yeah. I love talking business.
Oh, of course. It's the live show thing you brought up earlier, how that's going to work out. Quite interesting today. I noticed that a band from my neck of the woods, Skindred.
Yeah.
They're from literally 2 cities over. Known them for years. They've just announced a tour of drive-in theaters.
Yeah, we have a couple artists in America that are doing that. More so like the bigger artists. I think Garth Brooks is doing like a big drive-through tour. But yeah, it's kind of cool, like seeing these like new ways to experience live music.
Yeah. The only thing that got me there was that one of the things that hasn't been on our government's priority is art. It hasn't sort of impacted. They've never said, "Oh, we need to make sure we pull art back into our economy" or anything like that. It is a big deal.
Yeah.
It may seem like a frivolous thing to focus on, but at some point that has got to come back to where it was. My concern with these drive-in things is that the government will look at that and go, "Oh, look, those guys have figured it out," and that'll be it. And then smaller artists like us will be sat there in empty clubs because everyone's practicing 2 meter social distance, and
Yeah.
venue capacity is shrunk even further than it is already.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think streaming video is going to be very big in the next few years in the music industry. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of bands doing more so like one-time events than full tours. Kind of like over here in America, we had a festival every year called iHeartMedia Festival, and it was like this big televised event, and it was just a one-time thing. It wasn't a tour, and I think we're gonna start seeing that more. I think we're gonna start seeing like almost like I guess it would be like a variety show or like a telethon, like where it's just like a televised festival. Um,
hosted by
because
Jimmy Fallon.
yeah, right. Because touring expenses are only getting more expensive every single year. Like,
Yeah,
it's insane how much it costs to tour. And the profits are already razor thin for everyone involved, from, the venues to the bands, driving 8 hours, 12 hours to get to that show. So it's going to be really hard for there to be a lot of tours. I think we'll start seeing a lot more bigger one-offs,
yeah.
than bands doing their own headlining tours. And also
What
like
sort
uh, streaming it on, video. So if you can't make it to that show, you can at least watch the event, on
yeah,
TV.
more sort of traveling festivals like Ozfest and Knotfest and things like that.
Yeah, they've kind of been gone for a little while. Warp Tour, just died out, and
Yeah,
it seems like it's kind of been that way over on your neck of the woods for a while, where it's more like destination events than uh, touring
yeah,
packages.
things like Download and Sonosphere and those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I think we're going to start seeing more of those on all different levels, from the big ones like Download Festival all the way to smaller independent promoters that instead of doing, 12 or so shows throughout the year, they're just going to do one big one. And, all the people in whatever level he's booking in, comes together for one show and plays it. And then,
Yeah,
it's done.
it'll definitely be interesting to see how it goes. And I've always said that you've got to keep swimming with the current or you die. So
Yeah,
there are going to be
100%.
things that try and fight against it, and
There's no
they
against it. Like
no,
we've seen it like every step of the way with technology in the music industry. Like they've tried to fight everything tooth and nail, and it's really crippled the entire industry. You look at other industries like the gaming industry that has been on the cutting edge every step of the way. They've pretty much almost completely like digitally selling things now. There's so
yeah,
few game stores that like you actually go buy discs, and they were kind of like one of the first industries to start doing that. The movie industry as well. I think the music industry really needs to start like looking at what tomorrow is going to be like instead of like how to pump out every last dollar they can like today.
yeah, bit more of a bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely, because the music industry as we know it is very fragile, and like we're seeing it now. Obviously, the higher ups, the Post Malones and shit like that, are never going to have any problems.
Yeah,
An entire ecosystem of independent and small label bands quite possibly could just get devastated, and a lot of them aren't going to make it. And
No.
that's really unfortunate, being a person who grew up on, not necessarily pop music, underground music.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really unfortunate for the next group of musicians, if there even is any.
Can only hope.
Yeah, for sure. That was really somber. I definitely have a positive, outlook.
There's a positive vein through that, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. We'll figure it out. And the ones who don't figure it out are just gonna fall to the side and make room for the people who do figure it out and who learn how to adapt to whatever gets thrown at you. And I feel like I am definitely one of those people, and you definitely strike me as one of those people who's like, whatever comes at us, we're just gonna work through it. And it definitely makes it easier, when we're not making a living off of our personal records and things like that. We have that luxury of just making sporadic moves to just try things out.
Yeah, it does have that advantage, and it's like, I'm no less passionate about the stuff that I do. But it's never looking to make a record for the paycheck because I need to.
Right. Yeah, I think that as much as you try and like fight it, I feel like the art will always suffer in some way or another when you're looking at as, if I don't do this, I'm not going to have money.
Yeah.
So it's always going to
still
influence
food.
your decision making,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This has been so much fun.
Hell yeah, dude. It's awesome to finally talk. Like, I feel like we've been lurkers of each other for a while. Like, we've kind of like rolled in like similar circles, and we just started talking like on Messenger not too long ago.
It's definitely been a couple of years where I keep seeing this face, seeing this name, and that's that band. Oh, that guy's in that band. Oh, cool. It's always been one of those things, and then of course we've started chatting on Facebook lately. And I haven't had a chance to say this to you properly, but thank you so much for doing the feature track for.
Oh, dude, no, I honestly like, it was really fucking fun to do. I really like that track, and I think it's gonna fucking kill. Like, I think people are gonna really fucking like it. And thank you for letting me on your track, because I love your stuff.
I just want to sort of tell that story from my perspective, because it was like, I'm sort of going out there and I'm asking everyone, just shout at your phone, give me these 2 lines, and you jumped immediately. You're like, fuck yeah, dude, I'm doing this. And you went in, you recorded it so perfectly. Like it sits quite higher up in the mix, even in the crowd stuff.
Yeah.
Because you just put the immediate thing in. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it well.
Oh yeah, I don't half-ass anything I do. Yeah, yeah. If I'm going to do something, and if I'm going to put my time into it, I want it to be the best thing that I know I can put out.
But the coolest part of it for me was that you came back with the shouts, and then you said, dude, I've recorded this extra thing just because I had this idea. And you can use it if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. And when I heard it, I was like, that is it. That polishes the verses off perfectly. Because originally the idea was to have the crowd throughout the song.
Yeah.
And, then have the breakdown. But because you put that really cool feature track in place, I chose to use you in the verses along with me.
Yeah.
And then when it gets into that break, we can bring the crowd in and have that really big sort of climactic moment in the song.
Yeah, and I think you really captured that with that. Like, I like how it just, goes into this like thunderous chant like after the song's been playing.
But it wouldn't have given it any sort of impact had you not given me such a cool piece to use throughout the song. So thank you.
Oh well,
Really,
thank you. I'm glad you like it, and I love how it came out. Like, to be honest.
it's gonna be great. I don't think I've sent you the final mix yet, have I?
Yeah, I think you sent me like a rough copy of it, like when you added it to it. So I'm excited to hear the final version.
I shall send that to you when we finish this,
Hell yeah, dude.
because I want you to hear it. I want you to see exactly what I'm talking about.
Fuck yeah. And if you need anything for a music video for it, and I have cameras here, I can like record some stuff for you.
I was gonna ask about that, so great.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun. More stuff for the future.
Yes. And of course, if I can ever return the favor, just let me know.
Absolutely, dude.
Well, dude, it's been absolutely brilliant. This has been so much fun. And I've got a feeling that from some of the things that you've mentioned today, that there is plenty of scope for a second go at this.
Yeah.
So if you'd be willing
100%.
to come and do this again, we'll do it
Dude,
again.
anytime. Just ask me, and I'm down to do anything. I love networking with people. You know, I love talking with other people who are passionate about the same things that I'm passionate about. You know.
Yeah. It seems that we've got a lot in common, definitely.
100%.
So I'm going to end the podcast with that. Everyone check out Nothing Valentine. All the links are down below. Like and subscribe and do the YouTube thing. And yeah, that's it.
Later.